Well, we're starting now. Just like Dr. Dre is not really a doctor, it's okay. There's rap artists that go by doctor, and it is what it is. So happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
How's life in Spain?
It's good. It's good. We're getting into our autumn, so the weather's pretty. It's not too cold. We're having days still well, I would say in Fahrenheit, like in the 70s, maybe high 60s and things like that. So it's good. I'm north of Madrid. So food is great. It's very laid back. Can be frustrating for somebody who's ambitious, but you learn how to deal with that.
I hear you. So you mentioned it before we went on that you're working with some Fortune 100 companies and some politicians. Are you working with politicians over there in Europe?
Yes, I am.
You are. Okay. And what do you see? What's the biggest difference between a European politician and an American politician?
Well, I haven't really worked with a lot of American politicians, with the exception of when I was at university. There was a guy who went to go work for for senator in DC. And all I can say is he came back a semester later, a changed guy, like egomaniac. It was weird, man. It was really weird. Really, really weird.
Well,
I don't remember. Yeah.
I know that you've caught Tim Walz telling some lies. You've studied Tim Walz.
There's something wrong with that dude. Sorry, man, but yeah, his nonverbals don't quite match up to what he's saying. In other words, when you're looking at like body language, we're looking for congruency between what your nonverbals are saying and what your words are saying. And if there's a incongruency, where they're not communicating the same message. Example would be like I was saying, this is the best product in the whole world. You really should buy it, compared to saying, this is the best product in the whole world. You really should think about buying it and investing your money into this.
Yeah, what Donald's doing, he's shaking his head affirmatively and then basically shaking it left and right. Yeah.
What I'm doing is, I'm not saying Walter's doing that specific thing, but that's just like a really clear example of what would be non-congruent body language.
What did you see from Tim Walz? You have it on your Instagram, but tell us what you saw.
The wrinkled forehead. If anybody's old enough to remember Leave It to Beaver, Eddie Haskell. He used to always, when he was trying to manipulate somebody, the forehead. I haven't done anything. I'm innocent. This thing up here. Yeah.
The eyebrows raise and then the foreheads get the wrinkles. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's usually an indication somebody's trying to pretend something. His lips tell a lot about what's going on with a person. When you're pulling back your lips, you've got micro expressions that happen within the lips. So you can read contempt, disgust, which you just saw a moment ago. But micro expressions happen really quick. So they're like within a fraction of a second. Can be like, have you ever seen somebody's eye, like a little muscle, like tick? Have you ever noticed that?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure I have.
It's kind of like that. They're very minute things, but I mean, there's a lot of studies that have been done with it by Paul Ekman, David Matsumoto, so much so that the CIA teaches it to their operatives. The FBI uses it as well when they're doing interrogations. So it's scientifically pretty solid stuff.
How about the tucking the chin part? Almost as if you're protecting something, right?
Exactly. When we are feeling threatened by people, conversations, or whatever, or we're not so confident about what we're saying, we will see people bringing down to protect the chin. You'll notice Obama's always got his head up, exposing the neck. This is vulnerable, right? So it's showing that I'm not afraid. Which is cool. Just because somebody tucks their chin doesn't mean they're lying. It just means that, like, I remember there's a video from Trump years ago talking about our U.S.'s best days are ahead. He was referring to China or whatnot, and when he said China, he went, what does he know that we don't know? But anyway.
Yeah, the Tim Walz one is a very peculiar choice. I was really surprised that they went with him. And then when you see him on the debate stage with J.D. Vance, it was light years apart, at least in that setting.
I agree 100%. Yeah, it's quite. There's no comparison. Like light miles away. Completely.
Yeah, light years away. Now, are you a U.S. citizen?
I have U.S. citizenship. That's true.
Okay, great. Now, did you do early voting? Did you vote for this election?
I will be, yeah.
Okay. So you'll be back in time to vote.
Yeah, well, we can use that through the embassies. Though I don't know
Oh,
how,
okay.
I don't know where those votes go. If they go to DC or they go, you follow what I'm saying, how they distribute those, but
Right. Right.
that'd be
That's
interesting to
as
know.
long as they do them the proper way. That's all we could ask.
Well, we'll
Right.
see.
I know we don't have a lot of confidence after 4 years ago, but there's always been election fraud.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
No
And it
matter what we
happened.
say, it's gone both sides. There's always been fraud. When you have
Not
people and mass amounts of people, it's impossible, Donald, right? I mean, it's impossible. You've met a lot of people. Some of them I'm sure upstanding and some of them maybe not. And when you're playing a numbers game, and you let people have power and especially when they have a vested interest in something, they're going to tend to sway things or do things maybe that aren't in the most good faith, we'll say.
well, they may do it not in good faith, or it may be a lot of times because we have like biases. They might not even be aware of what they're doing. They might think they're doing the right thing. This is possible because people can justify. I mean, I'm sure I'll give you an extreme example. If you look at somebody like an Adolf Hitler, I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing in his own twisted mind, right? So I think you have some politicians that are aware that they're doing wrong, but there's others that they justify it and they say, oh, well, whatever. And this happens in everywhere in Europe. I've worked with I won't mention, of course, names, but one politician who got in when he was very young and into the European Parliament, and that's all he knows, being a politician. So of course he'll do everything possible to keep his job. And he admitted to me privately, he goes, if I'm not in office, it'd be very difficult because I don't have a professional career.
That's so true. Yeah, that's the risk. That's why for me, from a personal standpoint, I would rather see a governor get elected into the highest office, just generally speaking, over a senator. Governors have been CEOs essentially of their states.
Exactly.
They've had to govern, they've had to lead, they've had to manage. Where senators haven't had that.
No.
The senators get to go in there and place a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might grill you. They might have a legal background, those kind of. They've never had to be the CEO of a business or of their city or their state. And there's a big difference there.
Sure.
I want to get into your background, your story, but looking at it, it seems as if you made a comment that if somebody would have said to you something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but when you were 18 years old, if somebody would have said that you were going to be a master communicator, you would have looked at them, or anyone would have looked at them and said that you're crazy. This guy has no chance. What are you talking about? Why was that?
Just as a kid, I was kind of like bullied and I wasn't very, didn't have a lot of self-confidence and stuff. But what happened is I decided I was going to get over it. So I just worked at getting better at communicating. I like girls. So that was one of my main motivators. So I learned how to communicate, you could say. And as time went on, I got jobs in sales, and I was very good at that as well. So it was kind of a weird transition, but it was, step by step. I kind of failed. I failed a lot, and I still do. And I wouldn't consider myself a master communicator, though I think I know a lot about communication. But there's still people who are more masters than myself, of course.
Well, where did you struggle when it came to the girls, when it came to the ladies? Were you having trouble approaching them? Was it being able to hold a conversation? Was it all of the above? What was going on?
Maybe keeping their interest. Keep in mind, okay, let's say high school, junior high, I wasn't very good at sports. I wasn't a jock. So really, in their eyes, I had nothing going for me, right? And that changed. That kind of changed like my senior year of university. I got kind of wild and started like breaking the rules. So I was living a little bit on the edge. So I think that was more exciting to them. And of course, that made my social life much more dynamic. And university, I took it a little bit further, and university was great. And anyway.
But what did you do then? Because there's a lot of people that are in your shoes that are maybe teenagers, maybe in their adult lives. They struggle when it comes to approaching somebody they're attracted to.
Well, you're
What
worried
kind of
about
things did you put in place? Yeah.
You're worried about the outcome. And if you're too worried about attached to the outcome, it's the same thing in public speaking, right? People that come to me that have a fear of public speaking, It's always because they're so focused about what are people going to think about me and all about me and me and me and me. And the focus is on themselves rather than focusing on helping other people. Okay, now that's for public speaking. If we're talking about like pickup or just trying to meet a girl in a bar, sure, she might be nasty to you if you go up and say something. That happens, right? But she's probably not the kind of chick you want to hang out with anyway. That's the way she reacts. There's ways to tell people no and do it diplomatically. Now, there are idiots that don't get the hint. That's true too. Particularly like if there's alcohol involved and all that. But you need to have a little bit thicker skin and be able to deal with rejection. I mean, life isn't like they talk about psychological safety and this and that, and everything needs to be perfect. Life isn't perfect. I mean, we're one generation to going back to the Stone Age, if you think about it. And life at one period of time we didn't have psychological safety. So it's kind of it's a nice thing, but it's not really that practical.
That's interesting. You say that we're always internalizing.
Most of us,
right? Yeah. We're putting the spotlight on ourselves. Me. You're not thinking about anything else besides yourself. And you're saying, universally speaking, whether it's public speaking, approaching a girl, probably going on a job interview, and dozens of other things, don't put the spotlight so much on yourself.
Exactly. I mean, my favorite one is, enough talking about me. So what do you think about me?
I think you're a fantastic person, Donald.
But you get the joke, enough talking about me, but hey, what do you think about me?
Yeah, of course. Right. I don't need to keep saying it, but I still want to hear about it. Let just somebody else tell it. I'm with you.
There you go. There you go. So,
but that's something that I assume is a common thing that your clients too, that even very successful people struggle with this. What are some of the mental tips that you give these folks so that they can break free of that mindset?
Well, a lot of times if they're too cool for school, it's kind of hard to teach them, and then you get into that situation sometimes. What I do run into a lot is very senior people. We're talking CEOs and presidents and chairmen of big companies when they're going into retirement. And I try to let them know, things are going to change radically. You may find that some people who you thought were friends are not so friendly, and your life is going to go through big changes. And I've been consistently always told that I was full of beans.
Full of BS? Is that what you said?
Full of beans. Yeah.
Full of beans. Okay. They think that you're crazy, and then all of a sudden they realized this guy was right.
And in all these situations, I had contact with them maybe 1 or 2, 3 years after the retirement. And more than once, they acknowledged that, oh, wow, I didn't expect, they didn't expect that. The position, what happens is they become their position. Like if the center of your life is your position, or how much money you have in the bank, or the power you have, what happens when that's gone? Then who are you? What do you have? Nothing, basically.
Well, and these folks could have they could be financially free when they're retired.
Sure.
But they lose the status. They lose the clout, as the kids like to call it. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say that power is the most addictive thing that I know of. Money is cool. Sex is cool. Recognition is great. But power, straight up power, super addictive. Super addictive.
Well, it's kind of like what you see with a guy like Mark Cuban, who had all that status. He's got all the money in the world. I mean, the guy's a billionaire. We all know that. Right. And he used to have the status, and then the Shark Tank and all this stuff has kind of gone away. He's given up most of his ownership to the Mavericks. He's trying to get back. All the billions in the world don't buy you the status. And you see guys like that are chasing that down now because they have everything that you think you want. But to your point, when you don't have that 5-letter word anymore, when you relinquish that power, that's a tough thing for people to have to transition into.
Absolutely. It really
So
is.
when they call you and they say, Donald, man, I thought 24 months ago you were crazy, and here I am realizing you weren't. What are those conversations like?
They're not so direct because keep in mind, these people generally have big egos, the ones I'm talking about. Not every CEO has a big ego. That's not true. But some of them, yes, they really And so they're not so direct, but they'll say things like, yeah, that conversation we had back a while back, you had you had some valid points. I was really surprised. Or they'll say things like, wow, I didn't realize how tough it is, trying to start my consulting business. And yeah, people don't return my calls like they used to, and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
It's not the same, if you're president or CEO or a big shot of one of the major international banks. I mean, of course, people are going to return your call. If you're not there anymore, well, maybe I think you get the point.
So how about for the people that are struggling when it comes to communications, where they don't have all the savviness and the skill set? What are some low-hanging fruit things that you're helping them with off the beginning? Hey, we're going to walk before we can run. What are some important characteristics that you guys focus on?
Number one is listening to the other person, but that's more than it's actually very harder work to listen than it is to speak. So often people are listening and they're thinking about the next thing to say. And I'm guilty of this as well, but listening and observing. So it requires a lot of concentration if you're doing it effectively. People they're not trained to do it. So learning to make a habit of being able to zip it, stop yourself from interrupting people, listening to what the other person is saying, look at how they're responding, their nonverbals, their blink rates, their lips. There's some simple stuff that you can learn. That's, I would say, is the first thing.
And are you sitting there and basically, how do you train them with that? Are you basically just talking to them for minutes on end and then saying, hey, summarize what I just said? Like, how do you help them work on that?
The reality? Yeah. What ends up happening is I sit there for like hours listening to them.
You end up listening to them. I see.
That's reality. And I've worked with thousands of people, and I would say, man, a huge percentage.
Because they're so used to just talking. You're saying yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you're going, hey, we got to really work on active listening, and the next thing you know, you're the one that's doing the active listening.
Exactly.
So what do you do? How do you help these guys break free of those chains?
Well, you can interrupt them depending the kind of person. Depends on the profile of the person you're dealing with. That's really important too. Some people are much easier to navigate, and other people. I've had some tough cookies before. A CEO I had a few months ago. He told me directly, he goes, I'm not like you. Okay. But I could go into more things about it that we won't talk about on the podcast, but that was a crazy week. But generally speaking.
Wait, I'm sorry. When he says, I'm not like you, what was he alluding to?
It was an indirect insult that he didn't agree with my ideas or my teachings or whatever. He had been sent by the board to get some training to improve his communication abilities.
Yeah, that ego will kill you, man.
Yeah, it will.
That ego will kill you, especially when you come in already all puffed up, defensive. I don't need this training. Who is this guy? Who's this Weber character? What is all this crap about? I'm successful. What's this bullshit? That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We had an engineer once. This is a side story. He's a great guy. But we became friends afterwards. But he had an anger management issue, and they sent him to training, but they didn't tell him why he was really there. It was a public speaking class. But it was a way to kind of, in a sly way, to get him into some private coaching over his anger issues. And he got really good results at the end of that training. I don't know, the public speaking, maybe not so much, but the anger management. And I guess he was a really gifted engineer. So they didn't want to part with him, but they wanted him to kind of be able to calm down a little bit at work.
So what is it? Connect those two. What was it about the public speaking training that helped him get rid of some of that anger?
Well, they just use that as an excuse to get him to go get some help, basically. So He's in the classroom. He freaks out in the first, we haven't even started the workshop. There's about 20 or 25 other people there. He completely freaks out. My other trainer doesn't even know what to do. And I say, hey, yeah, no, you're right. It is a waste of time for you. I'm sure your skills of public speaking are excellent. And I'm really sorry that HR has asked you to come here, but I'll do my best to make it entertaining and for you to get value out of this experience. And that helped a lot. I mean, I said a bit more than that, but I mean, I realized I had a problem there was a problem there. So dealt with it as best you can. But as I said, we actually became friends. The course was about a week, and I still talk to him. So that
But then
happens.
what would you go, what was the anger management piece about?
Basically, when speaking about that, managing anger was when I sat with him privately. I had that opportunity, and that was really the real reason he was in that class.
Right.
Because I have private sessions sometimes with people who have fear of public speaking. Is what the normal reason would be. And just spoke to me. I said, "Well, this anger thing you have when the conversation came up. I mean, how will it affect? How does it affect your family, your kids?" I had identified like what was most valuable for him, right? What are his values and his beliefs? That was critical. So I hit those triggers, got him thinking, and it's through a series of questions. And then we did some sort of mental exercises akin to like hypnosis type things. And it really worked well for him. It really did.
Wow. That's incredible. You wear a lot of hats in your field. Right? You're not just an executive coach and making businesses more profitable. I mean, you end up becoming almost a mentor, a psychologist to some of these folks.
Psychology is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
If people, if we get groups of people in on a week, sometimes you've got dynamics where people are not getting along, but they got to be working together from different companies and all kind of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And those dynamics and being able to manage those to keep things peaceful and enjoyable for all the participants. And a lot of times they're living on premises. They're eating together breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're doing activities at night. So they're together like 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day. Wow. 18, no, but 16 hours a day. So they don't get a lot of private time. So it's critical to manage the dynamic there with the people.
No doubt. Well, and I imagine that a lot of these folks too, they're carrying things from yesteryear. They're carrying baggage from prior relationships, prior situations, their childhood. They were bullied like Donald Webber. There's all these different triggers that can be also playing a part in and each one is so unique, which makes yours, you know what I mean? Like when you think back to your childhood, what's the one? There was probably one instance that stood out above the rest when it came to bullying. If there was, what was it? Do you remember?
There's two that come to mind. One's not as embarrassing as the second one, but the first one, there was like a little hill when I'm walking home, and that's where I think it was called Dead Man's Hill. I have to keep in mind I was about 8 or 9 years old. No, I was probably about 7. And I didn't even know how to fight. I'd gone to a Catholic school previous to that, and we had like the only fighting was with the nuns and the priests that used to beat you between each other.
They used the paddle, but that was a one-way fight.
That was a one-way fight, and all kinds. But so the story is, I got challenged to a fight. I got up in a hill. There's a round of kids around me, and it was this one. I was fighting one kid after another, and then I got beat up by a girl.
Sorry, I'm sorry to laugh.
I remember her name. Her name was Kelly. She was a tomboy.
Yeah, well, at least she was a tomboy.
Oh yeah.
If she was like a real prissy girl, then you would probably have even a harder time dealing with that, right? At least she was a tomboy.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was one. What was the other one?
Oh, the other one's too embarrassing. I don't think it'd be appropriate.
He won't share this one with the world. Okay.
What the hell? I was in the locker room. I think I was playing. I was in varsity level, but I was trying to play football, maybe. Anyway, I was in the locker room with the football team guys, and they hung me up on a hook by my jock strap. Wow. That was painful, by the way. Yeah, that sucked. That really sucked. Yeah, that sucked.
Like what you would see in the movies. It really happened.
Actually, yeah, but it's for real. Yeah, it's for real. This is would have been the 80s, early 80s. But anyway, I learned how to fight, and I can say this after I was about 19, I only lost. Yeah, I became actually a bit more aggressive, and I only lost one fight, but I got jumped by 4 guys in a foreign country. But that's another story that doesn't really have to do with high school brawls or fights and stuff.
Now, did you find yourself though becoming aggressive toward people? Maybe sometimes overly aggressive as you're trying to prove yourself into your 20s.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember one time I mauled this guy, and I still regret. Not cool.
When you say mauled him, what you put him down and you unleashed on him?
Yeah, I did. He was dancing. Well, he was dancing with my girlfriend at the time and then tried to kiss her. And I just,
Oh, well, it sounds like he deserved an ass kicking. So
so he didn't get up.
sometimes, hey, listen, some people deserve an ass kicking. I mean, when you say Maul, I know there's different levels to it. It maybe not, he might not have deserved whatever you did to him. But if you have the audacity to dance with another man's woman and try to kiss her, you deserve something. There has to be some kind of repercussion.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But yeah.
But anyways, so to my point is when you're dealing with these folks, they could be coming out into the same situation with you and you're trying to help them with something and it triggers. It could be something that triggers that memory from getting hung by their jockstrap or getting beat up by the girl or whatever it is that was in their child. We all bring this stuff with us into our adult lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those, and I talk to people often, very frequently about triggers, that certain things trigger, reactions. So I try to get people to, if they have issues, to identify what are those triggers. What's the button that makes you, so you become more self-aware. So, this is a weak point for me, so I need to like back off or just zip it. It's like the typical thing. You write the email and then you think, you know what? I'm just going to cool off a little bit. And then when you go back to read that email, I think, oof, I'm glad I didn't send that. Same kind of thing, except more in real communication where you just say, okay, I'm going to shut my mouth. As I like to say, I say, who's a bigger fool? Let me ask you, who's a bigger fool, the fool or a person who argues with a fool?
I would naturally say the person that argues with the fool.
Absolutely. Right. So if you're dealing with somebody,
you may as well talk to the wall.
Exactly. So if you're dealing with somebody who's just not, is it really worth the energy, the time to,
That's so true. Well, I've always said this. My father's told me this since I was a child. You are the master of your words, but once those words come out, they are the master of you.
Absolutely.
You can never take those back. So when you say pause, don't push send so fast. That reminds me of that.
Beautiful words from your dad. Absolutely.
You did mention a lot of these folks come to you because they have fear of public speaking. What are the fears? What do people fear the most?
Well, they fear being judged or making a fool of themselves, or they're going to forget what they have to say.
All those eyeballs on you. That's overwhelming.
I think more, I don't know. I think the one I tend to hear more is they have to deliver a presentation to the board of directors or to upper management. And so they're really worried about being judged rather than focus on delivering value. And I mean, it sounds cliche to say deliver value, but focusing on helping and delivering information that's useful to the board rather than worrying about what they're going to think about me. That in that scenario, if you're going in a scenario where you got 500, 1,000 eyeballs on you or more, that's a little different. Also, the training is a little bit different. Generally, the people I work with in that, they've already have experience in public speaking, and it's usually more practicing their presentation and getting the wording down and not having it necessarily memorized word by word, but being comfortable with the topic that they're going to be speaking about.
Who's a really great public speaker in your opinion?
Well, let's see. I don't agree with his politics, but Obama is very good. Clinton is excellent as well. Les Brown is very good. In fact, I've heard that Les Brown was one of the trainers of Barack Obama.
And what about it about the Obamas, the Clintons, the Les Browns, the Tony Robbins, these types of guys? What about it? What do they have that makes them so great? What is it?
They have passion behind the words. A lot of it is theatrics. And let's see, when it's politics, a lot of it's theatrics. So just practice theater.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be a good actor or actress.
Absolutely. And you learn, because I teach people how to mark certain words that I want to emphasize and all that kind of stuff. So really it's theater. If we're talking to somebody, I think like a Tony Robbins or Les Brown, sure, he's practiced it a lot, but I think they internalize and they really believe what they're saying. At least 99% of it. In the case like Tony Robbins and Les Brown, even people the older we go back a while to Jim Rohn, Wayne Dyer was a great public speaker. Not as big audiences, but he was quite.
Ronald Reagan.
Reagan was great.
Yeah.
Reagan. Who was it? Of course, Martin Luther King. That was a great speech he gave. That one particularly he's famous for. Churchill. But it's interesting when you go through and you study, they study all these guys. They use the same technique. They use many of the same techniques, repeating the same idea 3 times. It's called trifecta. So you might, like in Obama saying, I believe that blah, 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 blah. I believe blah, 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 blah. I believe blah, 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 blah. Martin Luther King, I have a dream, blah, 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 blah. I have a dream, blah, 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 blah. I have a dream, blah, blah. This kind of red trifecta has an impact on the subconscious mind. And there's when you're speaking, you're trying to stimulate the emotions of the other people. And if you're able to do that, you'll be effective. And in fact, some people are so good at reaching other people's emotions or stimulating other people's emotions, they don't even listen to the words that they're saying.
They meaning themselves?
The audience.
The audience.
They're actually not listening to the words. They're so wrapped up in the emotion of the moment.
Well, Trump does that to people.
Yeah, he's quite repetitive.
Yeah, he knows how to stir up emotions in people, good and bad.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But you and I are on the same side. It sounds like we're pretty aligned politically, so that's a good thing. I always enjoy bringing on people that are like-minded. I also enjoy bringing on people that aren't. Listen, we're all entitled to disagree with each other and have different beliefs and different stances.
Absolutely. No, I agree with Trump's economic policies. His public speaking, he's good. He is repetitive, and sometimes I think he stirs up more than he needs to. You know what I'm saying?
Totally agree with that.
A little bit softer. It's not necessary. Maybe sometimes it's cool, but not necessary to always be. He's a New Yorker, right? So New Yorkers are fighters.
Yeah.
So.
But, if you listen to him on Joe Rogan's podcast last week, that was a little bit different side of him that people usually don't get to see.
For sure. He really chilled out after the shooting. Huh?
He did. He did.
Time.
Well, when you saw him at the Republican convention, he was a different person. And that was less than a week after the shooting.
Yeah. Actually,
it was definitely different.
I think he realized how close he was to having lost it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Donald Weber, we've got you linked in the show notes, drwebercoaching.com. Real quick, who are the type of people that you're dealing with? We've talked about some of it, but what do you specialize in? Who should be contacting you if they want to work with you?
Corporate executives, leaders, and even younger people who are aspiring for promotions or ambitious. It's hard to get ahead if you're not good at communicating. If you can't communicate, you can't sell. If you can't communicate, you can't negotiate well. If you can't communicate, how you get conflict resolution. If you can't communicate, how can you do a good job interview? It's very difficult to get ahead without good communication skills. You can be a great programmer, have really great hard skills, but you need to know how to communicate with people if you want to be a leader or influence other people. If you just want to be a technician in a cubicle somewhere, then, well, maybe it's not so important.
Well, I think you're going to have a long line of people, especially if you're targeting younger crowds of people, because the kids are growing up in today's day and age not having to communicate. They don't have to be like you and feel ashamed and get rejected. You and I had to go up and talk to the girl. We had to call them. We had to have the conversation. They don't have to. It's all behind a keyboard.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, they break up on WhatsApp. They go up for a year, send a WhatsApp. It's over.
Yeah, it's over. That's if they even communicate on WhatsApp. They might have to see it on an Instagram post. It's crazy. Hey, Donald Weber, awesome connecting with you, man. Continued success.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on. It's been really a pleasure, Nate.